This is Kyle McCord, and you're listening to Austin, Felix, and Matt on the W Debate.
Welcome to the
This is Kyle McCord, and you're listening to Austin, Felix, and Matt on the W Debate.
Welcome to the W Debate. All right, boys, are we ready to debate? Austin, you tweeted something, girl. You tweeted your running back rankings. Explain yourself.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast. Who jumped up and...
That's Austin Mace.
Who is going to be that guy? And for me, Bijan Robinson is still going to be that guy.
Back to the ground with Robinson, who spins and then tries to bounce it. A stiff arm, another one as he rides it, keeps his balance. They're going to say stepped out, but
I'm Felix Sharp. I know you didn't think that we would get through this episode without mentioning the name one Zach F. Wilson.
Screener draw. Oh, Wilson is going to uncork for the end zone, and he drops it in beautifully. And it is his roommate Dax Milne on the touchdown.
That's Matt Bruening.
G. Scott Jr. Obviously, I waxed poetic about him on the last episode, so I won't do that again here.
And this time it's Fields on the carry. Watch out. Justin Fields. Hello, Columbus. 51 yards.
Bruening, are you ready to go head-to-head with me?
I am.
Gotta get my popcorn out here. Hold on.
Got to continue. I got it. Kyle McCord is going to end up winning the job. He's going to be rated higher.
Well, I'm not nearly as passionate about what I'm about to talk about.
Our apologies to Herbstreit. We ran out of time. We'll get him rescheduled soon. And for Matt Bruening and Austin Nate, I'm Felix Sharp. Good night and good luck.
It is 8:30 Eastern time. Chris Moxley, Matt Bruening here for another episode of Devi Debate. And we got a lot to talk about, Chris. We had a whole rundown. We were texting throughout the day. It's like, oh yeah, we're going to talk about this, that, and then Nick Saban came in and said, screw your rundown. We're talking about him. But before we jump into Nick Saban retiring from college football, an absolute legend walking away. If you're new to the channel, hit that like and subscribe button. If you don't know much about us, we are campus2canton.com. You can check out the link on the website. We mostly do all of our content around college fantasy football. You can start all these players we're going to talk about on Saturdays, Thursdays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays. I think the only day they really don't play is Mondays outside of the national championship and usually kickoff week. You can play a whole college side, whole college fantasy side, and those guys go right up on your NFL teams. I promise you, you guys will enjoy it, especially if you like Dynasty football. It brings a whole new wrinkle to strategy. Chris, Nick Saban. What an absolute amazing career. I think if we're being honest here. So where did I put I had my notes somewhere and then they just disappeared. Here we go. 292 career wins, 7 national championships, 11 SEC championships, 2-time coach of the year. That's not even counting all the times he was SEC coach of the year, 2-time, I believe, Bryant Award winner. Like, he is the greatest of all time, and it's not really a question, right?
No, he's the greatest for sure. There's nobody that can compete with what he did and leave the legacy that he did at Alabama. And you had Bear Bryant coach there, right? Like many consider to also be one of the greatest coaches of all time. That's how good Nick Saban was. That run that he had, probably 2 or 3 years after he got hired to the COVID season was there's nobody that will ever be able to replicate it for a bunch of different reasons, but mostly because Nick's the best.
Yeah, it's, I know Felix mentioned it. He did a video as soon as the news dropped. I talked about it on either one of the Campus to Canton live shows where I know Nick Saban said it as well, and I agree. I think this was arguably his best coaching job he's done too in his entire career with the team that he had, and to get them realistically within 3 yards of possibly heading to the national championship. We don't know that they would have won in overtime over Michigan, but I saw you tweeting about it. A lot of people tweeting about how he just seemed lighter this year, happier, smiling more. There had been rumors all season long that he was thinking about retiring, and now it does happen. I think we should address the rumors. We don't know if this is true at all, but there is stuff that maybe there's something going on with Miss Terry. I do want to say prayers up to her if that is why he is retiring. Obviously, we hope everything is okay there. But it's a massive blow for college football, especially with we're right around the corner from this becoming a more national product. And you're losing, I would say, the face of college football in Nick Saban stepping away.
Essentially, right? My wife, who has no interest in sports in general, especially not college football, I wish she got home from work today. I told Nick Saban was tired, and she was like, "Roll Tide." She knows. He's like a larger than life figure for the game of college football, and he is really the SEC has always been great, but he's a big reason that the SEC is where it is today in the last 15, 20 years, which I think is really important. I think that he has, he's a little prickly around the edges. That's who he is. But like you said, you saw a lighter side to him that you hadn't seen in really ever. And it felt like it was coming. We talked about this a year ago that we felt there was a possibility that he wasn't going to be coaching there in 2024. And there you go. And I hope it's not that Miss Terry's sick. That'd be
Yeah.
that'd suck. But if it is, like wish her the best. But I mean, he's 72. He was the second oldest coach behind Mac Brown in the country. Like, he's gonna hang it up relatively soon.
Mac Brown probably we might be having
Mac
this
Brown should have hung
conversation
it
about
up
Mac Brown. Yeah.
a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually forgot that we actually did talk about it. I want to say we talked about it this preseason about Nick Saban possibly this being his last year, because I know we had the conversation about possibly Lane Kiffin taking over. There's obviously been the rumors because of the Aflac commercials, maybe Dion would end up going over there. He's on there. I mean, let's talk about who could be next. I don't think Dion is. I mean, he's not too far down the odds, actually. So they have put out like betting favorites for who the next coach is. Dan Lanning is plus 300, Dabo Swinney plus 400, Lane Kiffin plus 500, Kalen DeBoer and Deion Sanders at plus 600, Pat Shermer plus 900. I think the rest of these are pretty outlandish, except for maybe Sark and Mike Norvell. But Urban Meyer plus 1,000, Billy Napier and Derek Dooley plus 1,400. Billy Napier, that would be. I mean,
I don't know. I don't know who's hanging those odds.
Yeah.
I'd like to know, and I'd like to place probably $1 million on that.
Yeah, Mike Norvell plus 1,600, Sark plus 3,500. I had put Pete Carroll on here. I thought maybe it'd be interesting for him to come back to college. I did not see that he took an advisor role with the Seahawks. So I don't think he's going back into the college ranks. But I think the person everybody is talking about right now is Dan Lanning. Obviously, I mean, Felix and me talked about it. I know, I can't remember if you were on the show at that point. We talked about it when we were doing the watch along with the national championship. I love Dan Lanning. I think he's probably the next. Yeah, he's the next big thing. I personally hope he does not leave Oregon. I think he is great for college football in Oregon. He will definitely succeed if he goes to Alabama. There's no doubt about that. I like him being there. I think he makes the Big Ten a more fun conference with him being there in Oregon, going there, bringing Oregon to this national powerhouse that he has. I'd like to see him stay there, but what are your thoughts on him possibly going and taking over? Because I think he has the highest buyout, if I'm remembering correctly. I'm gonna actually. I know I saw. Dang it, Pete Thamel. Pete Thamel tweeted this out earlier, and I saved it because I wanted to make sure we could reference this. So the buyouts for some of the coaches mentioned for the candidate search: Dan Lanning, a $20 million buyout; Kalen DeBoer, 12. Dabo Swinney, 7.5. James Franklin, which is hilarious that James Franklin's up on this list. These are the top buyouts. $6 million, and then Mike Norvell, 4. I don't think the money matters. Alabama's going to pay it. Yeah, they'll pay whoever. They'll be like, hey, Dan Lanning, we'll pay your buyout, and then we'll make you the highest paid coach in college football by a fair margin. I think it would be hard to say no to that, but I hope that he does.
Yeah, I like Dan Lanning a lot. I think that'd be a home run hire. No doubt that he's probably the first or second call that they're making. And I actually think Nick Saban has a probably good amount of say on who gets hired as the next coach. I'd be very surprised if he did not at least be pretty involved in the process. He's just like, he knows coaches. Like Alabama would be stupid not to have him heavily involved anyway. And I think Lanning is a good fit. Like Lanning is part of, I think, adjacently the Saban tree. So I like that for him. Can we go to number 2 though? Who's Dabo Swinney?
Well, let me touch on, because I know you have thoughts on Dabo. Yeah, on what is interesting to me about the Saban thing. I just want to touch on that real quick, and it's honestly what makes me worry that it is more than football and why he's retiring. Is you would think someone like him already has like a predecessor almost named in a way, like, hey, like this is who we should go get if I'm retiring. It just seemed like it came together so quickly. I mean, obviously it doesn't have to happen that way, but we've seen that kind of happen throughout college football with the old school head coaches. So yeah, let's talk Dabo. Because I just saw one recently saying that there's some people who believe that they should reach out to him now and bring him in. I think it'd be a horrible idea, but go ahead.
Yeah. Nick Saban holds Dabo Swinney in very high regard as a person, a friend, a mentor, or like he's probably a mentor for Dabo. They're very close. Shane is in the chat, who is a Clemson fan, saying they go on vacation together. I've no doubt that Nick will put his name out there for Alabama. He's from Alabama. He is from the state of Alabama. He played at Alabama. Wouldn't surprise me if he was a sought-after candidate by that administration. I just think that would be a disaster hire. One thing Nick Saban has done every single year, every single season, is adapt. He has won at Alabama every way you can. Like, he was one of the first people to say, I don't think this is good for the sport, when we're talking about like the evolution of the passing offenses and whatnot, and then comes out and does the exact same thing. Like, he is one of the most adaptable coaches. I don't think Dabo Swinney is quite like that.
Yeah.
They are Brad Crawford at 24/7 Sports, who does a lot of stuff for South Carolina, said Clemson is the only program inside the top 25 nationally for the 2024 recruiting cycle without a transfer portal commit. You just can't win that way currently.
Yeah.
And Clemson, like, Dabo is a good enough coach where he can get it done in the ACC that way. I don't think that's going to fly in the SEC. Like, you've seen Nick bring in those guys. Like, James Williams was such a huge part of that Alabama run, and he was like the fifth guy at Ohio State.
Yep. Yeah.
I don't like that. I that's not the direction I would go personally. You need somebody who's open to using the portal, and I don't know that he is.
I mean, we'll see. I guess I'll give Dabo some credit in the fact that we never thought he would bring, someone outside of his, whatever you want to call it, coaching tree family.
Do you think that was Dabo doing that, or do you think that was the Clemson administration saying?
Especially with the way that offense was run this year, I don't think that was Dabo at all, because he didn't seem to let him run the offense at all the way that it was run, at least at TCU. Maybe, though, Nick Saban says exactly that to him. He's like, look, if you want this job, you've got to adjust to this and that. Because, you are not wrong. I remember for the longest time, Alabama and Nick Saban were known for top 3 defense, okay quarterback. Like, we're just here to run the ball down your throat and win with defense. And then the hurry up offense came, and Nick Saban's like, this is bad for football, and you shouldn't be doing this. And the next thing you know, next season, boom. And all of a sudden, brings in Sark, Lane Kiffin. Who else did they have? They had someone else. And all of a sudden, best offense in the league, Alabama, with these quarterbacks who are slinging it all over the place. He's adjusted and adapted in every single way. So, yeah, I'm with you. It will be intriguing which way they go. I think personally, off the list that's on there, and you would get fairly good odds if you bet this, and at least with the way the program looks to be going at the moment, I think Mike Norvell would be a very interesting hire for Alabama to bring in. Offensive-minded head coach. We've seen him over the past 2 seasons be able to bring in players from the transfer portal and develop them. We saw what he did with one Travis Hunter. Jared Verse, I believe, was a transfer portal guy that they brought over. Look at what they were able to do with him. He's done a very good job over the past 2 years in recruiting as well, which is a big thing for Alabama. Not that you need it as much, because Alabama, I think, is one of those schools.
Has he, though? That was going to be the distraction that I had. Like, he's kind of
this year
lost some classes at the end of the cycle.
If I remember,
the Travis Hunter debacle.
Yeah, well,
they lost a bunch on signing day too.
That was
Bud Elliott talked about it on Twitter, and I was like, yeah, like that's a concern.
Yeah, it has to be, but I think there's a little bit of a difference at Florida State than Alabama. Like the Travis Hunter thing, I don't know that you can blame Norvell for that. I think that's all Dion and just who Travis Hunter is. Like, Travis Hunter wanted to do something different than everybody else, so he did it. I don't think that that's on Norvell for not being able to keep him. Now, this year, yeah, maybe. Or whoever the other player that lost, maybe. That's probably on him. But I don't think you lose that at Alabama. Because I think Alabama is, I hate to use this line because I kind of feel like I'm going to be crapping on Ryan Day for a second. But the Jim Harbaugh line, born on third base, I kind of think whoever goes into Alabama, you're kind of born on third base with what Nick Saban did. Like, you have a built-in advantage. Now, don't get me wrong, I think, and I think you tweeted this out or you quote tweeted it. Alabama gets a lot of credit for what they did. A lot of that is Nick Saban, though. Like, Nick Saban built Alabama into what they are. But I think because of what he built, it's going to take a lot to bring that. They are now going to have a built-in advantage moving forward for whatever coach they bring in. And I think Norvell, because of what I've seen him do in developing players over the past couple of years, could be a good offensive guy. Because typically you also see they go the opposite way, right? Urban Meyer, well, not really this offensive guy, defensive guy. They bring in Ryan Day. Typically, these Shane just mentioned Kalen DeBoer in the chat. Chris Peterson, I can't remember who came after. Was it Jimmy Lake, right?
Lake.
What defensive guys, Kalen DeBoer come in, all offense. Yeah. But Jimmy Lake was let go for other reasons. But yeah, like typically you see administrations go the other way. So I think he would be a good hire. Florida State kind of seems to be on the downside after what happened last year. Yeah, Gene, we were just talking about Dan Lanning. Dan Lanning is going to be the number one choice. I don't think that's who I think everybody. Ohio State wants Dan Lanning. Everybody wants Dan Lanning. I don't know that he will leave Oregon because he is stated multiple times over the past couple of years he would not leave. He doesn't want to leave Oregon. And really the only connection to Alabama is the fact that he was on Saban's staff. So
yeah, for like a year as a GA, right? But I mean, he's Kirby, and I mean, it's the same culture. I wonder again, like going back to Dabo or a guy like Dion, what is the culture difference like between there? Because like I don't listen. I think Clemson and Alabama are probably pretty close, but the culture at Clemson feels a lot more Jonestown vibes rather than like a solid football culture where like you have young men who are succeeding. Like there's a little bit of a difference there between them. And I listen, everybody that sends their kids to Clemson raves about Dabo. So I don't want to like, like knock the dude because he's serious about making these kids better. But like, I don't think Dion would be a culture fit there either. I mean, I think Dion being even mentioned here is ridiculous.
I don't know if it's just because they do the Aflac commercials together. Like I don't get that at all because I'm with you. Like
he's just a hot name.
I don't mean this in a negative way, but like, what has he proven to get a job like Alabama? Like, I don't mean that. Like, don't get me wrong. I think he was fine at what, Jackson State. You know, he did better at Colorado. I think most people thought he was going to do, but like, let's see him like build a program up a little bit before we go and give him like a prestige, like elite blue blood school in Alabama.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, and I think the concern that you have with Dion is the reason he works for Colorado is because they needed a big PR injection, and it works because the administration did not have a lot of money to spend on athletics, and Dion changed a lot of that, and it makes sense that he was a good fit for the program that really needed that. Alabama doesn't have an issue bringing in money from their boosters from the state of Alabama. They don't have a brand issue.
Yeah.
Dion's not going to solve that. And if anything, it probably puts a bigger target on Alabama's back. I just don't think that's a smart hire. I think the hire that we haven't talked about, and I predicted when we were talking last year that Lane was going to be the next coach at Alabama. Yeah. I still think it could happen. I mean, I think Lane post Alabama has been a really a lot more mature coach than where he was as Joey Freshwater a couple years ago. I think Kiffin could do a good job here. I do. I just don't know if is he like serious enough for the Alabama admin? Is it always going to be the question? Like, he's posting memes on Twitter and whatnot, and like I love that in a coach, and I think that works at Ole Miss.
Yeah,
does that work at Alabama? I'm not totally positive because when you don't go have a 12 or 11 win season and you have a 9-win season, is that going to fly at Alabama? Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much I don't know if he needs to be like Saban, if that makes sense. Like, I think if they hire Lane, they know what they're getting in Lane Kiffin. I don't think they're going to ask him to be like Saban. They're going to be like, look, come in, do your thing. Like, we want you to keep that kind of culture, which I do think in a way he does kind of have, but he's different. He's a different cat. I don't know that Alabama would be like temper things down. Maybe they'll ask him to temper things down, but I don't think they would be like, you need to be like Nick Saban. I do think it would be a good hire as well. I mean, we've seen what he's done with the transfer portal this year at Ole Miss. I think he's done a really good job in getting some gems in recruiting as well. I don't know. Like, I feel it's weird because I don't even think he was in the top. He wasn't even a betting favorite, was he? Like, they didn't really seem to mention. Was he? Did I just go right by him? Oh, okay.
He's third. I mean, I think that's probably right. I think it's more likely. I think it's more likely that they hire him than Dabo for what it's worth. Do you think there's a chance Kalen DeBoer takes this job?
I was going to bring that up because Shane brought that up in there with him losing all his offensive weapons of quarterback. I mean, 2 wide receivers have announced Rome soon. There's no way Rome Odunze is going back to college.
He's top 10 pick.
I don't know because he doesn't have any connections, as far as I know, to Alabama. Now, again, I think they could go an offensive way, which Lane fits in that as well, like Mike Norvell does. There's a lot of rumors that Michigan wants Kalen DeBoer, and obviously there's a rumors that Harbaugh will be going to the NFL. So, I mean, I think it'd be a great step up for Kalen DeBoer. I don't mean any disrespect to the Washington Huskies, but I don't think that you would consider them like an elite premier blue blood school like you would Michigan or Alabama. So, I mean, I think if he were to go to one of those, same thing, I think he would thrive. Look at what he's done transfer portal wise. Recruiting's not been great, but again, how much of that is him? How much of that is Washington? Like, I mean, let's be honest. Look what Jim Harbaugh just did. And Felix always loves to talk about how bad his recruiting classes are. I think it really comes down to developing the players. And I think you could argue Kalen DeBoer has done a pretty good job of that of late. So, I think he'd be an interesting. For me, I think it comes down to, I think Kiffin and Norvell are probably my favorites outside of Lanning. Like, Lanning's the number one choice, but again, I just don't want to see Lanning leave Oregon. So I'm just hoping he says no.
Yeah. I don't know that DeBoer is a legit option. I obviously Alabama's an upgrade from Washington. It just on a lot of levels. I think Washington's going to have a tough time competing in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
So
and they have a tough schedule next year.
Yeah, and they lose a ton of production too. I mean, they're probably going to be pretty low in our returning production database that Nick does for the CFB Winning Edge. The one, yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's like a huge net you can cast because you need someone who is experienced and has won to hold the administration in check because they've only known Nick Saban for the last like 15 years. So the next person you bring in, people like power players are going to try to exert their influence. You need somebody who is going to push them to the sidelines. Yeah. It's an issue that Texas A&M has every year. They try to hire somebody. Like there's so many voices in the room. Can the next person come in and quell all of that? I think Dan Lanning can. I think Dabo Swinney can. I think Lane Kiffin can. I don't know about Kalen DeBoer just because he's only been at the FBS level for 5 or 6 years, despite winning 3 straight championships at the NAIA level.
Yeah,
but still, you need somebody who's going to do that. Like that's the bottom line, and I think there's quite a few people that can, but it's not a huge list.
Yeah, and to be fair, I don't know that Norvell could do that either. I don't know that Florida State's got boosters and administration that are really breathing down Mike Norvell's neck either. Gene asks in the chat, "Great job, guys. Love all the options you're mentioning. Any NFL guys to think about?" The only 2 that really pop out of the top of my head is, and I don't know that they'd bring back Bill O'Brien. I personally don't. I think we have a bad taste on our mouth with Bill O'Brien for what he did with Alabama's offense a year ago, or was that 2 years ago now? But we also, you got to remember, like he built Penn State up after everything that happened with kind of the death penalty with the Joe Paterno stuff. He made Penn State. I'm positive they beat Ohio State in a year that they were really good. Yeah, I was just about to mention him, Casey. Yeah. And then obviously D'Amico Ryans as well. The problem is, why D'Amico Ryans leave the Houston Texans after they just made the playoffs on a team I don't think anybody expected to win the AFC South. And he just took that team in his first year to the AFC South Championship, has a chance to beat the Cleveland Browns this week and make it to the second round of the playoffs with, again, a team that nobody expected to be here. Now, granted, I think he's only making $4 million.
He's making like $4 million. Yeah, that's the reason.
Alabama could probably like 10 times that and him be perfectly happy. So maybe that is why he does have some connections to Alabama as well. I believe he was an assistant coach with them. So there is some corollaries on why he could go back there. But I think it would be hard for him. Maybe not, because it is just 1 year into the NFL. But I would think with what the success he's already had.
You have CJ Stroud on a rookie contract. Like, are you really going to give that up to go basically be a coach and work 360 days a year? I wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean,
all you got to say is, "Hey, my name's being thrown." His agent's just got to go to the Texans and say, "Hey, my name's being thrown around for the Alabama job. Let's pay me, $12 million where I deserve to be paid."
Yeah,
and do it. They'll do it for sure.
They will. And what I think also works in D'Amico Ryan's favor with that is, like you just mentioned, I think the one thing most people probably don't realize, the college football diehard fans know this, and it's going to sound weird if you're an NFL fan, you don't like college football head coaching is, in my opinion, 10 times harder than NFL because you are having to recruit on a year-long basis. I mean, we haven't talked really about it on this show yet because it's probably something we can discuss when we get more into the offseason. We've really kind of just finished up with the national championship. With the way the playoff format's set up next year, the first round of the college football playoffs will be going on during National Signing Day. So you are going to have college head coaches trying to get ready for a playoff game that weekend, 3 days after trying to finish recruiting your class. I mean, why did I just forget his name? Hugh Freeze was talking about that during his whatever bowl game they had, where he was like, I was on a phone, or I think people were making a joke that he was like playing Fortnite with the recruit all night long, trying to keep his recruiting class together. That he even mentioned, I did not prepare for the bowl game at all. I left that all up to my assistant coaches. That's cool. You can do that in the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl. You cannot do that in the Rose Bowl. If you're in the playoffs, your head coach cannot be out there recruiting and not preparing a game plan. So NFL head coaching, as crazy as it may sound, in my opinion, is easier than a college football head coaching job. So I don't know that D'Amico Ryan would want to do that person. I mean, I think he would be a great fit. Again, just look what he's done with Houston, all the talks about the culture he built there, what he was doing in San Francisco before that. Like, I think he'd be a great fit at Alabama, but I don't think even for, I don't know, $40 million, so that's life-changing money. Maybe he would, but I think it would be hard for him to leave the Texans.
Yeah, they'll match whatever Alabama's going to offer him, and he'll stay. Basically, his agent will be on the horn with what's the name of the owner of the Texans? I don't
know. It's the McNair family, I believe. I know the owner passed, whatever it was, a year or two ago. So
they give a lot of money to South Carolina. They're alums. So
and KC, yeah, you're right. Whoever comes in to replace Saban has their work cut out for them. You know, we'll see what happens. I would hope that the whatever coach comes in will be given some grace and like not have to win, a national championship in year 1 or 2, but they might be kicked out if they're not. I think what's going to give them some grace, and we've already seen it, and I think more is coming, is what's going to happen with this roster now that Saban is gone. So we already saw 5-star wide receiver Ryan Williams, who reclassified, was supposed to be in the 2025 class, reclassified to 2024, is our number 3 wide receiver in our rankings. I believe he's top 5 for all the other services. Incredible talent. Was committed to Alabama. He is now decommitted. In fairness to Alabama, there was already rumors going on back on December 20th. We had Walker White on our early signing day show, and he mentioned that they're trying to flip him to Auburn. Those rumors had kind of already been out there, so I don't know that Nick Saban leaving was like the only reason he did it, but they lose him. I would expect we're going to see other players departing. I'll just say, like, I've been told there's a lot of rumors that Caleb Downs is trying to come out, and he's going to Ohio State, that he's already contacted some people. They've contacted
I heard
him.
South Carolina. That's crazy.
Hey, it'd be a good fit there too. But yeah, like I think there's going to be more going. The interesting one to me is going to be what happens now at that quarterback position, because Jalen Milroe, in my opinion, while fun for fantasy, in my opinion, did nothing to prove that he should keep that job. With the starting staff coming in, does Julian Sayin, the top-rated quarterback for some of the recruiting services, get a shot to win that job? Does Jalen Milroe stay? What's going on? They already lost Eli Holstein. Like, I think there could be a lot of players opting out. Obviously another big one for us, Justice Haynes. I don't think he leaves, but I think if he entered the portal, I mean, he probably doesn't get the same hype that Quinshon got because Quinshon's done it 2 years in a row. But I think Justice Haynes would be a guy highly sought after. Like, I think we could see, unfortunately, a lot of turnover here on the Alabama roster, and it's going to be interesting on how quickly they bring in a coach to possibly try and stop that, because for those of you who do not know, the new rules with the NCAA is when a head coach leaves, that portal now stays open for 30 days for that team and those players. So now they have until, I believe it's February, I think it's 10th? Like 9th. Is it not 10th? 9th? I think it's not.
I don't know how many days. How many days?
31 days in January. So
okay,
it's the 9th. They have now till February 9th to decide if they want to go into the portal, where the rest of college football has 5 days. based on the recording of this show. We're recording this on January 10th. They have till January 15th to announce their intention to enter the portal.
The portal's closed.
Is it?
You're
I thought
thinking
they
of
had till the 15th.
you're thinking of the declare deadline. For
Oh,
the
okay. Gotcha. Okay.
The portal's closed for everybody, I think, except Michigan and Washington, because they get an extra 5 days after the national championship.
That's probably why I was thinking the 15th. So.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I expect a lot of Alabama players to at least test the market. They might not enter the portal, but like back channeling, figure out how much am I worth? What am I getting paid? Is it worth leaving Alabama over? Who the next coach is going to be? All of those things are very interesting. Yeah, like you said about the Ryan Williams stuff, I'm not surprised. I mean, it sounded like he was flirting with Auburn and Texas a little bit. So I mean, he's what, 16 years old?
Yeah, but he's
I mean, that situation's crazy. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I wonder if, a coach that leaves brings his quarterback with them.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about someone like Kalen DeBoer might bring Austin Mack with him. That, like, if he recruited him, reclassified early. So it's going to be a very interesting situation and roster situation moving forward. I think that you will see some players leave. I think actually you're going to see a good amount of players stay. I think they respect the culture that Alabama's built and like playing there. But it really depends who they're going to hire. That matters so much.
And Casey says in the chat, if Lanning's hired, these players will probably stay. I think I would say 99% of them would. Yeah, I don't think I hate to say this because I feel like I'm throwing shade. I've called this guy a weasel multiple times. I'm not the biggest fan. I think if Dabo were to come in, you might see some players leave. And honestly, same thing with two other guys we mentioned. You mentioned Kalen DeBoer. I think players would possibly leave if Kalen DeBoer and Mike Norvell come in as well, who's a coach I think they should hire. I think Lanning is the one that if he comes in, you're going to see most of that roster stay put because of the respect that he has. Yeah, Speaking of the transfer portal, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think Lanning's the guy to stabilize the program.
Speaking of the transfer portal, we've had a ton of players find or pick their landing spots. I was going to start with Quinshawn, but Casey mentioned in the chat the Jaden Maava stuff, so we'll start with him. With him using Georgia or leveraging Georgia to get more NIL from USC. Look, don't hate the player, hate the game. That's the game. Good on Jaden, who I actually thought had a really good year for UNLV. Kind of surprised he entered the portal. I don't hate the landing spot in USC. I hated Georgia. I hate because there was no way I think he was starting over Gunnar Stockton.
Oh, I think he's better than Gunnar Stockton.
You think so? I don't know, man.
I don't think Gunnar Stockton's very good though. No. I mean, not to what I saw my play at. But sorry, continue.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think he actually has a chance to start. Like, I don't think he beats out Miller Moss, but like, I don't think it's that crazy to say he's not the next guy up. Riley doesn't have a quarterback coming in. I don't know who they're going to go get out of the portal. And I thought he actually played pretty good. Now they definitely need to improve on his game. I felt like a lot of his stuff was him rolling out and just kind of like cutting half the field and just kind of throwing these sideline throws. He struggled a little bit from what I saw throwing deep, but he was fairly fun to watch at times rushing. He had almost 300 yards rushing. I think he had 8 rushing touchdowns, if I'm remembering correctly, over 3,000 passing yards. Almost positive it's a plus 60% completion percentage. Like, he was good for UNLV, and I trust Lincoln Riley with a quarterback with those skills. So I think it was a good thing for him to go to USC personally over Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, he's a redshirt freshman, so he'll be entering his third year technically. I think he'll compete with Miller Moss. I'm not sure he's going to beat Miller Moss, but he's a good player. He really is. He got the job because of injury to Doug Brumfeld, but he held it the rest of the year, and he was like really good. UNLV was one of the most shocking teams this year in terms of how they did. A lot of that was Jaden Maava. So that's a nice get for security at the quarterback position for really any school. Like, he would have been probably the number 2 at Georgia, and I think he would have done pretty well in that spot.
And I mean, I don't know that he starts the year, but I don't think it's crazy to say that he might not take over. I think, I'm not saying you are, but I kind of think what Miller Moss did in that bowl game has been a tad bit overblown. With what I get it, he set whatever it was, the Holiday Bowl record. I don't remember.
Louisville was missing so many pieces.
Exactly. They had injuries as well. Like, I get it. He threw 5 touchdowns in the Holiday Bowl again, or whatever it is. But I just want you to, the teams that they play, kick off the season, Vegas Kickoff Classic against LSU. I think they're losing that game. I don't think the defense is going to be ready.
I will have LSU winning. Yeah.
They get at Michigan in week 3, traveling to Michigan. Yeah, I agree. Then they get Wisconsin at home. Close game, but I think they could lose with Tyler Van Dyke now in that offense. Then they have to go to Penn State 2 weeks later. I think a loss. Then they go to Washington 3 weeks later before they get an off week. And then they get Notre Dame, obviously, at the end of the year. Yeah, Washington, I think, could be a toss-up. We'll see what Kalen DeBoer does. I don't want to, they just go 14-0. But, like, I don't know that Miller Moss survives as a starter all season long.
You could see him benched. You could see him benched early. I mean, if they struggle, I would not be surprised if Mayava got in. I mean, I don't think Lincoln is sold on Moss at all. Really, he's talked nicely about him, but I don't think that's necessarily a endorsement per se.
I mean, he's the only quarterback on your roster. I think you got to talk nice about him at this point. You know, you don't want to be too mean.
It'll be interesting to see how the USC defense plays, because that'll basically determine Moss's whether Moss comes in or out. Because if they're getting cooked and Moss is somewhat struggling and they're falling behind, I think that's the situation where it happens. Because I mean, they brought in Matt Entz and Danton Lynn, and I think those are 2 excellent hires on defense. But if your defense still sucks, like, there are bigger problems there.
Yeah. All right, Quinshon. I've given my thoughts on it, so I'm just going to give you the floor on him, and we'll just do him and Will Howard. Both commit to Ohio State. Obviously, Quinshon on Monday. Love college football rivalries. Does it right as Michigan is winning the national championship. Ohio State post everywhere. We've landed Judkins in the transfer portal. You got to love it. Not that really took anything away from Michigan, but good try, Ohio State.
That's just classic college football.
Oh yeah.
Rivalry.
And then obviously Will Howard as well. Like I said, I did the videos. If you want to check out my thoughts on it, if you're watching on the YouTube channel, if you're listening on the podcast, go to the YouTube channel. Did a quick 5-minute video on both of those guys. But your thoughts on both of them landing at Ohio State.
I mean, Judkins is probably the best running back in college football, so that's a huge win for Ohio State. But again, he was making allegedly $850K at Ole Miss. I don't know what he's making at Ohio State. Don't know if it's close, but he was already very well compensated. Mm-hmm. I think this is a good fit for him, but I didn't think Ole Miss was a bad fit either. It's just kind of like, I feel neutral about him. I think it's a boost for Ohio State. Just, you got a talented back in that room again. No problem there. The Will Howard stuff is, dude, you're Ohio State. You got to do better than Will Howard in the transfer portal as your starting quarterback. I'm sorry. Like, well, I think Will Howard is not a bad player. I think he's a veteran player who can win games for you. But like, if you're Ohio State, you can't be celebrating Will Howard in the portal. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. I like Will Howard too, but man, like, that's tough.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much said that in the video.
Yeah,
I'm not a massive fan of it. You know, everybody keeps talking about, oh, well, his rushing. Like, guys, if you've paid attention to us for the past couple of years, you'll know that Ryan Day does not want his quarterbacks running the ball, like, at all, if possible. And I get he's going to have the best weapons around him that he's ever had in his career. So maybe he works out, because I think Ryan Day wanted him because he's the opposite of Devin Brown. What is Devin Brown? Devin Brown is a gunslinging quarterback that has not seen a tight window he doesn't want to throw into. Will Howard will operate that offense the way Ryan Day wants. I mean, Shane, you think he's better than Kyle McCord? I think that's objective, because the stats tell you Kyle McCord's been better than Will Howard every single season, actually. So I don't... Better deep, better short, better intermediate. The only thing he doesn't beat Will Howard in is rushing. So I don't know that he's going to have a nominally better season than Kyle McCord. Now, that doesn't mean that Ohio State won't be better. Again, Kyle McCord had a chance to beat Michigan and probably take Ohio State to the playoffs when they go to the national championship. They had the ball, final drive, he throws an interception. Maybe Will Howard doesn't do that. So overall, he has a better season because he takes Ohio State to the playoffs. Ohio State is bringing back a lot of those players on defense. And sounds like Henderson and Mecca are coming back, so that offense should be pretty good as well. But I mean, I don't think he's that much better than Kyle McCord personally.
I'm not sure he's that much better either. But I mean, I personally think he's better. But I mean, I'm not sure it's a massive upgrade. You chased Kyle McCord out for what?
For Will Howard, yeah.
Like, you thought you were probably getting Cameron Ward, right? Like, you thought Ward was going to commit to the program, or somebody better than Will Howard.
I think they were hoping. I said it on here, so I'll just say it again. They wanted Michael Pratt. That's who they want. They wanted him to not go to the Senior Bowl. I know they reached out to him to get him to come back. I was told there was never any conversation between them and Cam Ward. And to me, and Felix have talked a lot about it, it makes it like Cam Ward, again, plays football the way Ryan Day does not want you to play football. Like Ryan Day, you've seen the times Ryan Day's yelled at Kyle McCord and CJ Stroud on the sideline for doing some things. You don't think he would be chewing out Cam Ward for what he does running around in the backfield for 30 yards before passing it? Like
he might pull the Urban, fake a heart attack.
Oh, yeah. So they wanted Michael Pratt. And when that didn't work out, I think their options were limited because then it came down to like DJ. I don't think he wanted DJ. So it came down to who can operate the offense. And it's Will Howard.
Yeah, I agree. I guess you could have done worse. You could have got Reese Poffenbarger from Albany. So at least you're not Miami. Although I like Reese. It's just, yeah. These schools, these like blue blood programs need to be doing a little bit better with their quarterback portal stuff.
I'm confused what you mean, S. Brown, by Georgia plays the whole season and can't even crack the top 5. Weren't they the 5th ranked team? No, it was Florida State was number 5, right?
And that's only because it depends which poll you're looking at, I think.
Yeah. I mean, Georgia's going to be fine. I think they're going to be the number 1 seed next year. So Georgia will be fine.
They're the title favorite as of right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about where Georgia was ranked at the end of the 2023 season. They're going to be I picked them to be the number 1 seed. I did my 2024 playoff projections last night. They're my number 1 seed. I have them playing in the national championship next year. Like Georgia's going to be good. They lost to Alabama, but yeah, they'll be fine.
Bad loss, but you're good.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Yeah. You're good. You're good. Number 1 recruiting nation, or number 1 recruiting class in the nation. Even after losing the number 1 player in Dylan Raiola, you're good. Don't worry about it. Malachi Nelson to Boise State. Talked a little bit about it on a video as well. I think it's a great thing. I actually picked Boise State to make the playoffs next year. I think they have got a Billy, can't remember his last name, did a really great job for them as an offensive coordinator last year. Dennis took over as head coach with the last 3 games after Avalos got fired. They scored more points than most teams in college football. They were on fire. And I think Malachi brings I hate using this word that much, but elite quarterback to that team. I think Boise State has a chance to go they're going to lose to probably Oregon. I don't think they can keep up with Oregon. But outside of that, they should go undefeated, could be the top-ranked G5 team. And if that's the case, they have a chance to make the 12-team playoff.
Yeah, I mean, this is clearly an indictment of Malachi Nelson, though, that he didn't land at a Power 5 job, or at least a good one. Yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know what happened there. I mean, I know he was hurt at the beginning of camp. I believe it was a shoulder or something upper body, and it never seemed like
it was a shoulder injury.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know. It's probably bad for Malachi Nelson's stock, but great for Boise State. I mean, Taylon Green left. Madsen Maddox or whatever his name is okay, but Malachi Nelson elevates his team a lot. Yeah, they'll be one of the better G5 teams in the country next year, for sure. They're probably the odds-on favorite for the Mountain West.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, Malachi Nelson hurt I believe it was his throwing shoulder, but I could be wrong, in his senior year in high school, and it took quite a while. He actually had surgery in the offseason, didn't do anything in any of the All-Star games, All-Star Bowl games. Did go into spring, didn't have a great spring game, and there were reports that he was still dealing with issues with the shoulder. Honestly, there were reports that it's still not fully healed. We won't know obviously one of the worst things about college football, they don't have to report any of that stuff. So we have no idea.
His shoulder isn't fully healed from a high school injury. No wonder. I mean,
that is scary.
We have passed medicals at like high-end programs.
I don't know.
Probably
I mean,
not, if that's true.
I don't know that. I think Colin and Austin talked about it, and I do agree with what they said. Is I think a lot of it was he didn't want to compete anymore. He wanted to go somewhere to prove he can start. And with likely the 2-time transfer rule here to stay, it has not been approved yet. It's on a stay right now, but I think it will happen. Malachi Nelson could go out to Boise State next year. Let's say that, because I agree, Casey, they're not beating Oregon, but if they're the top-ranked G5 team, they're probably the 11 or 12 seed in the playoff next year. If he takes them to the playoffs, some Power 5 team will then come calling for him, and then he just transfers back up and does it again. So I don't think it was a bad move. I mean, because really the top, I don't even know if you'd call them the top P5. It was Houston and Miami. I don't know that you want to go to. I definitely don't want to go Miami. Houston might have been interesting, but like I don't know. I think he's got a better shot to really actually prove himself with Boise State. As crazy as that sounds.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the passing attack looks like. And I mean, they love the head coach that, we went from interim to permanent, and you have a good running game that you can rely on too. So like they have to respect the pass. It's a good situation.
So really quick, not that we want to like keep going back to Bama here, but according to John Sam in the comments, Bama has contacted Dan Lanning, Eric Bieniemy, which is interesting, and then obviously Dabo Swinney. We kind of figured Dabo, Dan Lanning, Eric Bieniemy was not one of the NFL names I expected.
We have a CFB meme zone report that a private flight has been chartered from Eugene, Oregon to Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Any guesses who's on that?
I would assume Dan Lanning. Dang it, Dan. Don't do it, Dan. Stay in Oregon, please. Please stay in Oregon. I love you there. No, it'll be a great thing for Alabama. Real question, actually. He goes to Alabama. How worried are you if you're a Georgia fan? Because I'd be terrified. I know Kirby.
In the couple hours post,
but
in the couple hours post Nick Saban, everybody was fist pumping.
Yeah.
Again, real
Auburn's
excited.
Hugh Freeze.
Yeah.
We're 5 wide receivers in the
time.
recruiting class. Everybody's excited. Yeah. And then
you bring in Dan Lanning, and it's like
with the cigar. Yeah, that's what he's gonna. He's gonna be smoking it at the press conference. Oh yeah. I would be. I love Dan.
Yeah. I also feel bad for Oregon if that happens because how many times their head coach going to get poached?
I know. Well, and who? Well, we'll just go down the rabbit hole here. Who goes to Oregon if Dan Lanning leaves?
Man, I don't know.
Because I
don't know. Jonathan Smith would have been a great hire, but before he went to Michigan State.
Will he leave Michigan State? What's the buyout? Let's look that up real quick. What's the buyout for Michigan? I think they can afford it.
Mario Cristobal at Temple situation.
If Phil can afford it, he can afford it. I think he's fine with it. No, I think because that's insane. I think if it were Lanning, Oregon opening up, that's a top. Let's just cap it at 10. It ain't lower than 10. I would say
probably
top 6, 7 job. What's better? Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan,
Texas.
Yeah, I agree with Texas. That's who I was forgetting.
Texas A&M. If you want to look at the money.
I wouldn't. So there's probably the 6. They're going into the Big Ten right now. I would argue as the favorite. I think they're better than Michigan right now, even if Harbaugh comes back and McCarthy. I think they're right there with Ohio State. I think those are the 3 Big Ten favorites.
They're the only team in the Pac-12 that recruits at a physical and size level that could compete in the Big Ten. So yeah,
that would be.
I don't know who Michigan would bring on. I know they have the money to bring on a lot of people. Ryan Grubb.
That would actually be a pretty good hire. I like Grubb. I brought him. We never got a chance to talk about it. Me and Felix had a show lined up of who the best offensive coordinators to be the next head coach. I had Ryan Grubb on my list as my number 1 candidate. I think that would actually be.
He's been awesome at Washington. He's been awesome since he's been with Kalen Bohr. I think Oregon, that'd be a great hire for Oregon. I think they could also promote Stein from within, office coordinator to head coach.
Yeah.
He doesn't have any experience, so that would be kind of tough. But I think Stein's been awesome at UTSA and Oregon.
Yeah, you just got to go out and get that defensive guy that Lanning was to kind of complement that side of the ball. Last 2, and I put these specifically on there for you. Tyron Smith leaving UTEP to go to Cincinnati, and Mikey Matthews, I can't remember where he's leaving from now. Going. Right. I'm sorry?
Utah.
Was it Utah? I think you're right. Utah to Cal. Any thoughts on those 2, the last 2, like most recent names moving?
Tyron Smith committed to A&M, did a spring semester there and then came back. I don't know. It was a weird situation. I don't know what's going on with him. I thought Mikey Matthews transferring out would mean he would go somewhere better than Cal. And the Cal situation is bad. I kind of like Trano Rogers as quarterback, but still, it's Cal. So kind of weird, but yeah. The one that's not on here that I love is Reese Poffenbarger going to Miami as quarterback. I think he's pretty good from Albany.
Oh,
Felix, yeah. I was talking to Felix, and he compared him. Or no, it was on here, actually, on one of our shows. He compared him to Zach Wilson. I thought it was kind of interesting.
Interesting. He would know, I guess, right? Big Ten football standings. Because I'm disagreeing with this comment here, but I'm trying to remember exactly who's all going into You're right. There are no Stanford, Cal's, or Arizona State or Colorado's in the Big Ten that are in the Big 12, but they do also have. I mean, Rutgers was okay.
They have
Rutgers, Maryland, who is not good.
Yeah. Indiana.
Yeah, I mean
I think they'll be better with Cignetti.
They've got bad teams too. Everybody does. SEC's got poor Vanderbilt taking strays this week as well.
Oh man, did you? Yeah,
yeah,
Jeez.
I saw that. Yeah,
everybody's trying to cheat, but Vanderbilt.
Yeah. I mean, Nebraska might turn it around. So let's call. I know Rutgers clobbered Miami in the bowl game, S. Brown, but let's.
Rutgers had a really good defense this year.
They did. They finished 7-6 overall, but they were 3-6 in the Big Ten. So like, I'm just let's calm down.
And they crushed Gardner-Webb one week.
Yeah. All right, top 10 rankings. Do we want to save that for next week? We're already at an hour. What do you think?
We can save it if you want.
Let's save it. 60 comments. Look at you guys coming in strong today.
People are heated. Nick Saban's firing got everybody. SEC got South Carolina. South Carolina was a top 4 team like 8 years ago. I'm just saying.
You know what, Mike Valerie? I'll tell you this right now. This might sound insane, but I'm going to go ahead and say it anyways. Lenora Sellers has taken the Gamecocks to the playoffs in his career at South Carolina. I think it's happening.
End it. That's it.
Kirk, we can't talk to you, bud. We can't talk to you. Lenora Sellers has got to be it. That's ending the show. We'll catch you guys next week.